Why aren't men getting married anymore?
I just saw another embarrassing video of a woman asking a man to marry her.
Think you want to get married one day?
No, marriage is not for me. You know what I mean? The custom and it's not a good business move for me.
Either marry me or you reimburse me. It's that simple. I have the ring already. All you got to do is get on your knees and propose.
Please stop doing that. If he doesn't ask you, he doesn't want you.
Ladies, here's the thing. We want men to be husbands. We want the rings and the things.
Question is, why are men saying no to marriage?
For generations, they were told, be her protector, be her provider, be her peace. And they tried. They gave everything, their time, their money, their soul, only to learn that in this world, a man's effort doesn't guarantee him love anymore. They saw their fathers lose everything. They saw their friends go from husbands to visitors in their own home. They saw loyalty become conditional and respect turned into negotiation. And one by one, they stopped believing the dream because it's not love that they're afraid of. It's what love now costs. You can lose half your income, half your home, half your identity. And when it's over, the world still looks at you and says, you should have chose better.
This girl said she wasted 10 years on a relationship because she thought she was going to get married to this person. She always been wanting to get married. She's seen the proposals come up on her For You page, and she thought hers was going to be like that. And it took her 10 years to find out that this man don't want to be married. He think being married is a piece of paper. Ladies, that's the first, cause y'all know, like, when you first meet somebody, well, I don't know, cause we go over the, what's your middle name, when your birthday, what's your favorite color. Next question immediately after, do you want to get married? If you don't have kids, do you want to have kids? What's your end goal? Like, why do you be dating people?
So now men are saying no, not out of hate, but out of survival. They're not walking away from women. They're walking away from pain dressed as partnership, from contracts that feel like traps, from vows that sounds like promises, but they end like punishment. And the truth is, men didn't change. The world around them did. Love used to be a bond. Now it feels like a gamble. And the ones who once built families are now building walls just to protect what's left of their peace. So, if you've ever looked around and thought, why are all men giving up? The answer is simple. They're not giving up. They're waking up. There was a time where men felt safe to lead, to speak honestly, to love out loud without walking on eggshells. That time, it's gone. Now everything a man says or does can get twisted, recorded, taken out of context, and weaponized. A compliment can be called pressure. A disagreement can be called aggression. And a man who once felt proud to protect now feels punished just for existing wrong. It changed the way men date, the way they speak, the way they trust. Because when truth itself became dangerous, silence became survival. So, he stopped chasing and stopped opening up. He stopped risking his name for a feeling that might cost him everything. And the irony is, he didn't become colder. He became careful. The world told him to be vulnerable, then laughed when he was. They told him to be emotional. They mocked him for being weak. It told him to listen, but never promised to listen back. So now, when he looks at marriage, he doesn't see love. He sees liability. He doesn't see partnership. He sees exposure. And somewhere between fear and fatigue, he built walls where his vows used to be.
She proposed to him?
When a man is down on his knees, he's asking, he's begging. You please marry me? That's what you're doing, honey. You're on your knees begging a man to marry you. Stop it. Stop it right now.
But here's the part most people miss. Men aren't pulling away because they stopped caring. They're pulling away because they care too much. They've seen what happened when good intentions meet bad faith, and they don't want to be the next example. Somewhere along the way, love got loud, and attention replaced intimacy. It used to be simple. When a man found someone, his focus was on her. Now, his competition isn't other men. It's a billion strangers strolling through her phone. Every post, every heart emoji, every "you look beautiful" from a man she's never met. It becomes a quiet reminder that love lives under a spotlight. And in that spotlight, people stopped seeing each other. They started performing. Relationships turned into content. And somewhere between filters and followers, authenticity died a quiet death. Because how do you build something real when everyone is afraid to look average online? How do you stay loyal when temptation is one message away and validation is free? That's the world men are trying to love in today. A world that rewards attention more than commitment. A world that vulnerability can be screenshotted and trust can go viral for the wrong reasons. So they stayed quiet. They stayed guarded. They stayed single. Not because they want to be alone, but because peace feels safer than being misunderstood again.
You wouldn't get married.
Oh, no.
You've never been married?
Never been married. No, I don't believe in that shit. You ever thought about? I think about marriage every day.
It's not just men lost trust in women. They lost trust in the environment of love itself. They watched the rules change. They watched loyalty fade. And they realized the modern dating game wasn't built for people who take love seriously anymore. Because real love needs mystery, privacy, and sacrifice. But we traded all of that for followers, screenshots, and dopamine hits. Now, the men who once dreamed of marriage, they dream of something smaller. They dream of peace, stability, someone who doesn't need an audience to love them back. But here's the twist. Even though men have pulled away, they still crave connections. They still want to be seen. They still want to be trusted. They just don't trust the stage that love is performed on anymore. Because if everything is for show, then nothing feels sacred. And if nothing is sacred, how do you ever feel safe again? That's the quiet truth behind this generation's loneliness. It's not that people can't love. It's that love now competes with the entire world's attention span. He doesn't want to compete for his partner's focus. He doesn't want to beg for peace in a world addicted to chaos. He just wants something real, and that shouldn't feel like asking for too much. So, when men say no to marriage, they're not rejecting women. They're rejecting noise. They're rejecting the performance. They're rejecting the feeling of always being one mistake away from losing everything they've built. This is what no one tells you. Men aren't disappearing. They're protecting themselves. In a world that keeps trying to redefine what love even means. Every generation of men before this one had something we no longer talk about, certainty. They could fall in love without checking a risk assessment. They could build a home without wondering who would own it when it ended. They could say "I do" without secretly asking themselves, how much will this cost me when she doesn't? But now, every love story begins with a quiet calculation. Every promise carries fine print. Because for too many men, love no longer ends in heartbreak. It ends in bankruptcy. You can work 20 years building a life together and still lose your house, your savings, your kids. Because love stopped being sacred and started being negotiable. And no matter how calmly you say it, no matter how respectfully you explain it, the world will still label you as bitter for noticing. But men aren't bitter. They're exhausted. They've watched friends lose everything they worked for, and all they could say was, I can't afford that kind of love.
I'm never going to get married. I don't want to get married.
Why?
There's no benefit for the man.
They've seen courtrooms turn into battlegrounds where love doesn't matter, only leverage does. They've seen fathers begging to see their children, as if being a dad was a privilege instead of a promise. And each time they see it happen, something inside them breaks. A small, quiet belief that love still protects. Because modern love doesn't just break hearts anymore. It breaks reputations, bank accounts, and peace of mind. A man can lose his family and still be told that he's the villain. He can provide for years and still be called useless. He can protect her for decades and still be treated like a stranger in his own story. So, tell me, how many times can you watch that happen? before trust becomes impossible. That's why today, commitment doesn't mean what it used to. For women, it still feels like connection. For men, it now feels like exposure, an emotional cliff where one wrong step can take your freedom, your finances, and your future. It's not that men are afraid of love. They're afraid of asymmetry. Because when the rules are different for both sides, someone always ends up getting punished for trying harder. And too often, that someone is him. So now men call it peace. But what they really mean is protection. Protection from false accusations. Protection from emotional manipulation. Protection from being told their pain doesn't count. They still crave love. They just don't trust what comes with it anymore. Because love isn't supposed to feel like a contract. It's supposed to feel like home. And when home becomes a courtroom, even good men start to disappear. There's a reason this generation of men feel different. They stopped chasing validation, and they started chasing peace. They realized something women still haven't fully understand. The world changed, but the expectation on men never did. He's still told to provide, to protect, to lead. But now, he's also told those instincts make him controlling. He's still expected to take responsibilities, but no one takes accountability when he breaks under the pressure. That's the quiet truth behind this shift. Men didn't lose their value. They lost the world's appreciation for it. And when value stops being recognized, it stops being offered. Because men aren't asking for praise. They're asking for fairness. They're asking for effort to be mutual, for love to be safe, and for respect to mean the same thing in both directions. But modern relationships taught men something brutal. No matter how much you give, it's never enough for someone who's been taught to measure love by what you provide, not by who you are. So, men started walking away, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. They realized that peace isn't found in being needed, it's found in being respected. And when a man no longer feels valued for what he built, he'll stop building. Not because he can't, but because he's tired of building things that he can't trust to last. They watch society reward chaos, applaud independence over partnership, and mock the very men who once carried entire family on their backs. And quietly, something shifted. Men stopped trying to prove their worth to a system that only remembered them when they needed saving. They started investing in themselves, building in silence, and choosing solitude over humiliation. And now, the world calls it loneliness. But for many men, it's finally peace. Because what do you do when your effort becomes invisible? When your love is met with suspicion instead of gratitude? When everything you give is questioned and everything you withhold is condemned? You stop playing the game. You stop proving. You stop performing. You stop begging for respect that should have been given to you freely. And that's the moment everything changes. When a man realizes his value doesn't depend on who accepts him, but on who recognizes him. That's what most people don't understand. Men aren't running from marriage. They're running from invisibility, from being treated like background characters. In lives they help build, they're not giving up on love. They're reclaiming their dignity in silence. And when a man finally realizes that peace is more valuable than validation, that's when he becomes unshakable. That's when he stops chasing what drains him and starts protecting what grows him. That's not fear. That's evolution. When men stopped speaking, the world called it indifference. But silence was never indifference. It was protection. It was the moment men realized that every word could be twisted, every feeling could be dismissed, and every vulnerability could be used against him. So they went quiet, not because they had nothing to say, but because no one was really listening.
Men don't want to marry anymore because the risk outweighs the benefits.
Now you can feel it everywhere, in marriages that feel like business deals, in conversations that feel more like negotiations, in households where two people live together. But haven't touched each other's souls in years. Love didn't die from hate. It died from silence, from men learning that peace and distance hurt less than being misunderstood again. And that silence has a cost, one no one wants to admit. Women are lonelier than ever. Men are quieter than ever. And the connection both sides crave is trapped behind pride, fear, and resentment. We built walls to protect ourselves and accidentally built prisons around our hearts. Because here's the truth most won't say out loud. Both men and women are hurting. Men feel invisible. Women, they feel abandoned. And both are convinced the other stopped caring first. But the truth? Neither side stopped caring. They stopped feeling safe showing it. That's the consequence of silence. You keep your peace, but you lose your people. You win the war of self-protection, but you lose the warmth of being known. And for all the talk about freedom, solitude still whispers at night. Even peace gets quiet enough for the loneliness to echo. That's what's really happening out here. A generation pretending to be detached while secretly aching to be understood. Men stopped speaking and women stopped believing, and love got lost somewhere between them. It's not that people can't love anymore. It's that no one wants to be the first to risk it. We made safety more important than sincerity, and now everyone is safe, but no one is connected. That's the part no algorithm, no court, no movement can fix. You can't legislate trust. You can't automate intimacy. And you can't build a future off fear. So now we're here, a world full of people who would rather scroll through fantasy than face the risk of reality. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that men said no to marriage, but that both sides said no to vulnerability. Maybe this isn't the end of love. Maybe it's the end of illusion. Because what men are realizing now isn't that they don't need women. It's that they can't keep loving in ways that destroy them. They've learned that peace isn't selfish, that solitude isn't weakness, and that walking away doesn't mean they stopped caring. It means they finally started healing. This generation of men grew up watching promises break, watching their fathers lose everything, watching good intentions get turned into evidence. And one by one, they said quietly to themselves, I won't let this be me. And maybe that's not the death of love. Maybe that's the rebirth of clarity. Because somewhere inside, men still want connection. They still want loyalty, softness, and warmth. But they want it without fear, without humiliation, without having to sacrifice their peace, just to prove their worth. That's the awakening. That's the shift. Men are not saying they don't want to love. They're saying no to losing themselves in it. They're saying no to being disrespected in the name of equality. No to being disposable in the name of empowerment. No to being the villain in a story they never wrote. And yet, here's the part that still matters. Even after everything, men haven't given up. They just grown up. They're learning to build slower, to choose wiser, to protect what's real, instead of chasing what's popular. Because real love isn't about proving your loyalty to someone who doubts you. It's about protecting your peace. So when the right person comes, you still have something left to give. Maybe this is what evolution looks like. Not war between men and women, but an awakening between truth and illusion. Men are finally learning that you can be strong without being a stoic and loving without being naive. You can walk away and still wish her well. You can still protect your heart without closing it forever. Because in the end, the goal was never isolation. It was understanding. And maybe this time, men are loving themselves the way they once loved everyone else, completely, recklessly, and without an apology. So, when people ask, why are men saying no to marriage? Maybe the answer is simple. They're not saying no to love. They're saying yes to themselves. It's been your girl, Remi Rene here. I'll see you guys in my next video.